We're live. Hi, everyone. Welcome to, oh my goodness. Hello, folks. Thank you for being here. I'm Nancy Reddy. I write the newsletter Be Less Careful, and I'm joined today by Jennifer Reid and Mara Gordon. We are here. So an obsession of mine right now is people, women especially, but people, making big changes in midlife, like getting to this point where you've got a career, you live somewhere, you have a partner or you don't, you have kids or you don't, but like a lot of things in your life are kind of set and then deciding, ooh, I'm doing something new. And so today, I'm joined by two women who are both physicians and doing all kinds of other cool things. So Mara, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you. I am so happy to be here. And we were just chatting that it's so funny. We're all neighbors in the Philly, South Jersey region. So we should have done this IRL. So next time we'll get together and all be on one screen. So I am a primary care physician. I'm a family doctor, and have been for 10 years. And I am a writer as well, which has taken me a really long time to use that word. We can talk about that. It's a very loaded term. Doctor, I have no problem with, but writer has a lot of baggage. And even though I have been a writer my entire adult life, a journaler, a college journalist, a high school journalist, and a professional writer since medical school, it has really taken me a long time to sort of own that term. And I am writing a book now about diet culture in medicine. And I think getting a book deal, still, I found myself saying, like, I'm trying to write this book. And I said it to somebody who's part of my publishing team, and they said, no, 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 you're not trying. You are writing this book. You better be, else you're in big trouble. Exactly. So I am a physician writer. That's how I'll introduce myself, and I write the newsletter, Your Doctor Friend.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, I will go next. So I'm Jennifer Reid. I'm a psychiatrist and a writer. I do find that
You got
difficult,
it.
I have
Good
to
job.
say.
Yeah.
Thank you. And unlike
Fun.
Mara, I actually, in growing up, I had an older sister who was an excellent writer and very into drama and all sorts of things, kind of literature related. And so I went into my lane of science. And so I'm actually
Mhm.
someone who didn't really do much writing, honestly, at all. I was a little afraid of the classes in college with the big blue book or little blue book
Mm,
that you had to write and write and write. I thought that seems terrifying. I liked the multiple choice. So I was a zoology major in college, but I always found some creative outlets throughout, like in medical school. At Columbia, they have like a theater program within the medical school. So we did musical theater, we did Shakespeare's Twelfth Night. And I find that that combination of having the science with the creativity has always been really helpful for me just to feel balanced. But I didn't really start writing at all, except for my notes for my patient's stories, which is its own writing, until COVID and having a personal loss and just going through all those transitions. It became a catharsis for me. And I started and I realized that what I wrote out helped me understand what I was thinking and feeling. Maybe people think psychiatrists just inherently know what we're always feeling and thinking, and we can totally manage that perfectly. But of course, I'm human, so I can't. And that's what writing has been for me. I have a Substack called A Mind of Her Own because I really believe in women's ability to kind of go out and make incredible changes in the world if they have the freedom and the energy and the mind of their own. So my book, Guilt Free, I have the requisite picture of it or, the book behind me, but it really is to help women cope with this emotion because I was hearing it from everyone and feeling it myself, certainly during COVID and beyond as a working parent, as a partner, as a daughter. I mean, there's so many reasons that we feel guilty. So I'm really thrilled to have a book that really feels like teaching on the page. But I am a little bit new to this writer world. So I agree with Mara. It's hard to say.
Can I ask you? Okay, so you talked about this thing that sparked your own writing practice, right? Mara, did you have something like that? You said you've been writing. I mean, you've been writing forever, but like, was there a turning point that sparked or made it more possible for you to claim this label of writer?
that's so interesting. I mean, I think I did a fellowship at NPR after I finished my residency training. And I'm a little, I'm sharing that because it was very formative in my sort of identity as a journalist. It really sort of changed my conception of myself from amateur to professional, which was really exciting and powerful. But I'm a little reluctant to use that as my example, even though I just did, because I don't think you need to have something like that to start
Mhm.
that internal transformation. And I'm not sure which came first. Like I thought of myself as somebody who could apply to such a fellowship and had what I needed to put together a competitive application for such a fellowship. But I think I think the fellowship sort of made me feel credentialed. But I yeah, I do feel like there's sort of a shift, and we're talking about midlife changes. I actually just turned 40 like a week ago. So happy birthday to me. And so yeah, I mean, obviously this has been on my mind a lot as I'm thinking about what this next phase of my life is like. And I do feel a sense of like, I don't know, like sort of self-actualization. I think that comes with age and time, where I think having sort of credentials and having a line on your CV can certainly be helpful, that external validation, but I don't think that's the whole story.
I mean, I feel like part of what we're talking around is like imposter syndrome, right? And this
Yeah.
idea that you have to be credentialed. And
Right.
you both are obviously in medicine. I feel like I've had in some ways kind of like a reverse, like I always thought of myself as a writer. Um, which meant then that like science and math were not for me.
Mm-hmm.
I ended up writing my most recent book, The Good Mother Myth, is partially like history of science, which is not something I ever would have thought as a young writer that I could do. I just didn't think it was possible. And I'm so interested in how we like develop these narratives about ourselves. Oh, thank you. That's so
I
nice, John.
loved it. I loved your
Thank
book.
I read it
you.
too. It was great. Everybody should read it. It really transformative to my
I
thinking
feel like
as
in a
a
way, if
mom.
you're
So
yeah, like I'm, early motherhood. Mine is much more like memoir, history of science, cultural criticism, and then Jennifer has a much more kind of practical, as she said, teaching. This is how you. So I think they're great. They're great companions. Um, but yeah, I think like we grow up with, and there's certainly gender to it. I think as well, right? Narratives about kind of who we are and what we're capable of and what's valuable. And I'm curious if that resonates with you all in terms of like, did you feel you had a kind of constricted sense of what you could do? Although I don't know, you guys both like did choosing medicine mean like woo, medicine, nothing else?
Well, I think for me, it was growing up in a family. My maternal grandfather was a physician, my father, my sister's a physician. She's a surgeon now, which is so funny because she was the writer of the family. But and also a family of 11. My grandmother's one of 11, and most of them became teachers. She was a librarian
mhm.
and teacher. So I think there's just this through line that this is what I was going to do, and that the important piece was helping people, but also teaching. Like that was sort of the through line. And so I think that I've been trying to figure out how I best approach that in my life. Writing this book, I think, was only when I had the confidence to say a physician can look the way I want it to look in my own life. And that was really hard at first because it felt like it was taking a risk. And physician, you have this identity that you've kind of created and curated and you're socialized to feel throughout medicine. And to say, I'm going to do this something else that does take time away from clinical work, like one on one patient care. And so I had to think, how is this actually helping? Who am I teaching? Who am I potentially healing with this? And broaden the identity of healing because I think you can really get in this very focused box. And we're pressured to that this
Mhm.
is what a real doctor looks like. And I think I'm trying to redefine that, though that creates its own, emotional baggage at times.
I love that though, of thinking about like what do I value and then how can I make the way that I do that broader, right? That it doesn't just have to be working with patients. And teaching is such an interesting through line there. What about you, Mara? You were always writing, but also chose this intense path of medicine and just no.
I mean, I always joke that like being a journalist was too hard, so I decided to go to med school. I mean, honestly, I think there's some truth to that. But you know, it's funny. I've had multiple points in my life, and I think we all do, and it's kind of fun to recognize them where I felt like I had to reassess the stories I was telling myself about
Yeah.
myself. And I worked for my college newspaper. I was really into, history, English kind of vibes. And um, when I thought about going to medical school, I had to take all of my science classes. I took none as an undergrad, and I had to do a postdoc. So I sort of went back. I mean, I had only been in the workforce for a short time. I was still pretty short out of college, but I'd been working in public health and decided to take my pre-medical classes. And it did take some really deliberate work of like, I am somebody who can do chemistry. And telling myself that story, like, oh, I wasn't a science person. It turns out, when I put my mind to it, I actually could understand chemistry. And I actually really liked chemistry. It was there's some elegance to it that is kind of fun. I don't want to be a chemist, but anyway, I think in a field like medicine, we do like, and now I'm a medical educator too. That there's so much sort of credentialing and gatekeeping, like every step of the way. Like you have to get good grades on these sort of obscure science classes that some of my colleagues would argue otherwise, but I think have very little to do with like the practice of contemporary medicine. And you have to get certain scores on your tests. You have to like be really good at following directions and doing what you're told. I mean, every step of the way, that's like really what's rewarded. And so I got pretty good at that. I mean, I've always had like a little bit of an authority problem, so I maybe was not like the world's most perfect medical student. But it really like, has taken some unlearning at this point in my career where I'm feeling confident, and I feel like I know how to be a good primary care doctor, and it's really, really exciting to feel those little flickers of creativity, like, what does it look like to not always follow the rules, to not always, take the next step that's offered to me by this, like, big healthcare system, right? And to say, "Huh, what do I really wanna do? What feels exciting and energizing to me?" And, it takes some unlearning of that socialization that Jennifer alluded to, which is very strong in medicine, but it exists in so many fields, right? That it's like you learn how to be a good doctor, and that's not just about like knowing how to do the right answer on the test for like what medication your patient needs, right? It's about so much more about how you're socialized, and feels really liberating to say like, huh, like where can I be creative?
Yeah. Well, and it's so interesting because all of that, I mean, certainly there's gatekeeping in writing as well, but it's different, right? Like you can't just show up and say like, I'm a doctor now, but you kind of can just get started pitching, right? Like you can just, and so there's an interesting way that you can just, like the way to become a writer is in a lot of ways just to start and then look for help and then da da da, but like it makes sense to me. It's
Yeah.
something that you could just kind of like, try.
Well, and it's funny that you say that because I have so many calls with other physicians sort of at all stages of training, and I try really hard to make time for them because I benefited from them so much in my earlier stages. I have a friend, a millennial friend's mom who's a retired dermatologist in her 70s, who I've been corresponding with about how she wants to start a Substack and she's terrified. And I'm like, you are the most accomplished professional. You've had this, like, lauded career, in sort of academic dermatology, like, what are you afraid of? So I do think you're right, Nancy, that, like, I always tell people, like, the way to be a writer is to write, and to read. I will add reading. But I think that medicine kind of scares that creativity out of us sometimes because it's the system is so dependent on us, on our obedience, I think, in many ways, and sometimes for good, right? Like, it's really important that we learn, how to act in an emergency, like how to look for help, in sort of these like emergency medical situations. You can't just go rogue and like try to run a code when you're a first year medical student, right? But on the other hand, I do think that like corporate healthcare sometimes benefits from that, sense of compliance, and it feels really exciting to, like, unlearn some of that, like, "Hey, wait, how do I, hold truth to power? How do I start to
I love
put
that.
words to the stories that I'm seeing that I wanna tell?" So
Oh man, I love that. I'm so curious, Jennifer, like you're in a different field of medicine and psychiatry, right? You have this work on guilt. And I'm so curious if that idea of creativity and risk taking, like how you feel like that connects with your practice, with the process of writing your book. You have a podcast, like you've done all kinds of things that are outside of the line of at least what we usually think of psychiatrists as doing.
Yeah, I think there's a through line there. I gave a talk to some residents about my career path, and it was very winding. It was sort of starting out in internal medicine, switching to psychiatry, working in all these different areas. And I think, as a psychiatrist, we really are trained ideally to be kind of a blank slate when you're sitting in a psychotherapy session. It's not about you. It's not about what am I feeling? Like, what do I want to do creatively in my life? But it is a really creative process because you have a series of different steps that you might want to think about or things to explore, but you're working one on one with this unique individual. And so you have to adjust and adapt to what their needs may be. So there is that push pull. It is very creative, but I think we're socialized in medicine and in definitely so in psychiatry to kind of stay behind the wall, so to speak. Like I'm Dr. Reid, and that's all you know about me. So I think that did make me a little nervous when I started writing, when I started the podcast. I love doing interviews because it's not just me on there. I get to like ask someone all these questions and really go into it. So it was hard for me to put myself out there because that was really pushing back. It still is. Doing publicity for my book coming out because it's this month is like really hard. But also, you see all the misinformation, you hear all the misinformation out there, especially in my field, but in all of them. And I think, okay, if people who have some training like Mara and I don't speak up, who's going to fill that void? And it's not going to necessarily be people with the best ideas. And I'm not trying to sell supplements. I'm trying to give information. And so I've really had to push through that. And I think, going on videos and things like this, it's always a little bit scary. But I do really think, again, with that teaching mindset, like, how can I be the best teacher? I got to show up in these places, even if my ends are really dry and like my skin is blotchy and I just had strep throat and my kids are going to be home any minute and I'm in a rush, et cetera, et cetera. I'm digressing. But I think that that's sort of the challenge, but also really an opportunity for and I saw Beth talked about nursing professionals. Absolutely. Like physicians, nurses. I just interviewed a physician, nurse, and nurse pair who are on introspective spaces, which is a great place to check out for creativity and artistic work in healthcare. But I think we're all creative people in healthcare. So how do you release that? How do you share that with either your own small group or more broadly, like we're trying to do?
I love that. I mean, I have this it's not even like private to me theory, but like that we all have this creative impulse. And I think it can be so hard to take that seriously, to honor it, to make space for it. So I want to ask just like kind of a practical question. Like medicine is famously demanding, right? So how do you make time for your creative work when you also have a clinical practice, when you're also teaching, when you're also doing all kinds of other things? Like literally where in your day does this fit?
Mark, you
Jennifer, you
can
want to
start.
take it first?
I know this is like an unanswerable question, but like try to do it anyway. And it might be like a practical, it occurs to me as I'm talking about this, like there's practical things where like, oh, I get up half an hour earlier, although when my kids were little, that always summoned them. So then I just had a
Mm.
kid next to me as I was trying to write. But maybe there's also something about the mindset of like, are there things that you're not doing to make space for writing? So be as practical or kind of, philosophical as you like in time.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it is absolutely, I've had to step back from a clinical standpoint. And it's something I'm going to step forward into again because I really do miss having that as a consistent work that I'm doing each day. But you have to take that time away. I had fun creating like Instagram reel of all the different places that I wrote. So that's another practical aspect. It was like,
I
go to
saw
the
that.
tennis
It
court
was
or hit
great.
on
It
this.
inspired
Yes,
me.
yes. But that's really what I have to do. I was studying coffee shops. I like a little stimulation, so I can write in those settings, probably better than a really quiet room or a library. But I think you have to kind of find it where you can. And there's always this conflict. I mean, that was one of these major expectations I write about in Guilt Free is that we can have it all.
Yeah.
But that means we have to do it all. And there simply is not time to do that. So how do you again prioritize what those values are? Being here when my kids get home from school is super rad, but I do have to put work away and then maybe come back to it later. And I think it's a constant push pull, but it's sort of figuring out what do I want to prioritize.
Yeah.
This is a great question, Nancy, and one that I always will click on any article that discusses such matters. So I always like love hearing about other people's like routines and kind of how they make it work. And I guess the first thing I'll say is that it comes in sort of seasons for me, and I hope I'm in a long season of creativity, but like residency is really tough. And I was not creative during that time. It was really, really hard. And I think many of us go like residency is very discreet. Like I knew it would be done in 3 years, which thank God. And
Mhm.
other people in other fields may not be lucky. Um, but I think if you don't have like a natural endpoint to like a busy season, being really deliberate about trying to seek one out, I think can be a positive thing. And I think it also has taken me some time for me to like clarify my values. And I think um, I've dabbled in so many different sort of like, oh, do I want to sort of climb the academic ranks? Do I want to be a medical school dean? Do I want to be a hospital administrator? Do I want to do, safety issues in the hospital? Like all of these things sort of like, or do I want to be a researcher? Or that was something I thought about a little more seriously. And um I think that period, but like those periods of experimentation, are important. I haven't always had like a laser like focus necessarily, but I think, um, yeah, that there's sort of over the last few years, I felt more clarity about what my ambitions are, and it felt really exciting to sort of like I was feeling unambitious. I was feeling sort of burned out, and I was like, what is it that I want to do? And being able to like clarify what my ambition was has been really energizing and really thrilling. And it doesn't look like what most of my colleagues are doing, and that can feel scary sometimes. Like is this legitimate? Is it it's not peer reviewed. That's like doctors are just obsessed with that. And it has its place. It's really important. But I was sort of like, wait, I really want to be writing for a broader audience. Like,
Yeah.
peer reviewed research is not my goal. So anyway, I think it's a sort of it's trial and error, but I think it's also like it feels really exciting to get honest with yourself about what fires you up. And and then to practically answer your question, and I talk to my mentees about this all the time about like trying to negotiate roles in healthcare. I could talk about this for hours, so anyone feel free to reach out to me, offline. But I think like trying to find a job because most writers have other jobs. I'll say that. There's a few lucky few who make all their money from writing, but most writers are teachers or have a day job like I do as a primary care doctor. I'm joking, it's not my day job. It's my main job. But um anyway, so I think like being really careful in how you like negotiate that role and think about like putting together a schedule if you're lucky enough to be able to have that autonomy, is so critical to give yourself some breathing room. And I could talk to any med students in the audience, about that offline because I have many thoughts. Yeah,
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I apologize. I'm like at the tail end of a cold and
yeah, it
can't go shake.
happens. That
Um,
10-year.
it really is. So, okay. So in
Mhm.
closing, I'm just wondering if I feel like you guys have both offered some great big picture advice about like trying to get clarity in your goals, being kind of patient maybe when you're in a season of not knowing exactly what the next step is. I think that can be really hard. Um, and then practically maybe stepping back or kind of changing goals to make that happen. So I'm curious if you have any other tips or advice. I know there are some healthcare professionals of various kinds here who are writing, who maybe want to be writing more. If you have any sort of practical advice for those people as they try to get their voice out there.
Go ahead,
Right.
Jennifer. Yeah. I wanna hear your smart answer first, so then I can add on it. Yeah.
Oh dear, the pressure. No, I mean, I think that again, coming down to what are your values? What's really important to you? And finding ways to do that where you can really grow and shine. I mean, I think Parker Palmer, I had him on my podcast. We talked about vocation and that we can learn just as much from coming up against things that don't work for us as we can from things that really do. And so for me, working in like a really hectic emergency room where I was just go, go, go would just be the absolute opposite of what would really work for my kind of nervous system and general energy. So for me, it was finding how can I even build community and do teaching in a way that I feel comfortable with. And the podcast has been this really wonderful way to meet with people that are doing amazing work all over the country, the world. In fact, I've interviewed people in other continents, and I think that really feeds me. It's a labor of love. A podcast is not going viral typically, but it's a way to sort of talk to people, communicate, hear the good things that are happening around the country, around the world, and find my place in it. And my husband said, you're a communicator. That really is kind of your skill set. So that's not a research niche and that's not like a medical niche even. It's just like, okay, how could I maybe use that to try and help people and teach people about living a healthy life? And so it's finding your own path to that and writing your own story, because I think anyone in healthcare, like I said, has the potential to create some beautiful work.
I totally agree. There's so many stories there that really deserve to be told. And our system doesn't reward that, right? Like our system rewards very quantitative, very efficient, very rapid sort of ways of thinking about human relationships. And I think there's so much richness to be discovered in sort of stories related to health and medicine and illness and wellness, right? So I guess my advice, I work with a lot of students, and my advice to my students often is sort of trying to write beyond fear. I think there's a lot of fear that we have as healthcare providers about seeming a certain way, what it means to be a professional, pissing off our employers, violating HIPAA. That's a big one. That's a real one. So these are not like petty concerns. I mean, they're really important to take seriously, and I, try to work with my mentees to take those seriously. So it's not that they don't exist. I think it's more just about like identifying the sources of fear that are holding us back from writing, which I think are specific and unique to healthcare, although there's lessons I think to be learned for writers all over and sort of in many different arenas. And naming them, like sort of drilling down into what the best course forward is, and then trying to write beyond that fear. And it's hard. I saw the day that one of my bosses subscribed to my Substack, and I was like, oh my God, I'm writing about body image. I'm writing about like very real grievances I have with healthcare as a system. I'm writing about parenting, and I was like, Mara, this is what you wanted, right? You want people to read it. And so I think, yeah, like really exploring that fear and hopefully exploring it with a trusted source of sort of friends, mentors, building a community of writers, I think, also really, really helps.
Man, yeah.
Yeah,
Exploring fear, I feel like is a great theme for all of us maybe, in our
totally.
lives. Oh my goodness. Well, thank you guys so much for this incredible conversation. Jennifer's book, Guilt Free, which you can see right behind her, is
Yeah.
out so soon. What is your official pub day?
January 27th. So 2 weeks from today. Is that right?
Janu-
Mathing?
Yes, and if I have the calendar in my head correctly, is it on that day? Is your party getting held on the day? Okay, yeah. So if you happen to also be in South Jersey, as all three of us are, I will be at Jennifer's launch at Inkwood, which I'm so excited about. So 2 weeks from today, on the 27th, in Haddonfield, if that is close to you, come join us. And Mara's Substack, Your Doctor Friend, is so wonderful and such a source of encouragement. When are you're writing your book, so we can't actually get it yet. No.
Oh, I am still writing. I'm talking about it because it makes it real, but
Yeah,
it
I
is,
know.
God willing, will be coming to you in 2027.
2027. Okay, so we will be on
Yeah,
the lookout for that.
we got some time. Yeah.
Yeah, and you can also catch Mara on NPR fairly regularly, which is amazing. So
Mhm.
All right. Thank you all so much for being here, and thank you guys for doing everything you do.
Yeah, thank you. And Nancy, just to chime in that your newsletter has been such a source of encouragement to me. I'm so glad I found it. And it really, but it really gets at, like, what it makes us think about, like, what's holding us back, what feels scary, what opportunities are there, sort of beyond that. So I love the work that you do.
Thank
Yeah.
you. I really appreciate that. Yeah.
Well, thanks, guys.
All
Thanks,
right.
everyone.